Hello. How's everybody doing today? Good. Weather's a little nicer today. Thanks for coming out. Yesterday we had a lot of fun. If you were here, we had a lot of great presenters. We went through kind of some early guild history, some early processes of traditional craft making into the introduction of industrial craft making and some broom making, and then we got into challenging kind of archives a little bit of looking at them as a place of control and power rooted in colonialism, and ended up all sitting, everybody who was left for the last one, we had a bunch of tables here, and we were all sitting around playing with dolls and having a blast with black Barbies. And so today is going to be another very exciting day. We have a great list of presenters today that includes contemporary makers that, though they are making contemporary work, they also all rely and will probably reflect on the traditional techniques and histories that guide some of their work. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And we'll, so who wants a poster? Who wants a t-shirt? So yeah, the t-shirt cannon's broken, so I'm gonna try not to throw out my arm today, but all right, so now today we're going to start with Janet Wiseman and Dede Stiles and Janet Wiseman, who have are working through a NC Humanities grant for traditional craft mentorship, and so we're going to hear some about Dede's practice here. So Dede Stiles has a master's degree in education and many years of teaching. The focus of her craft work has been to pass on her knowledge of the traditional craft of natural dyeing as it was done by our Appalachian ancestors who foraged their own dye sources. Stiles recently authored a book, Wild Mountain Thyme, as a companion to The Dye Pot by Mary Frances Davidson. This book is designed to help dyers identify native dye plants. Knowledge gained from nature in her dye work has helped inform Stiles' work as an activist in support of the protection of natural resources. Since early childhood, Buncombe County native Dede Stiles has been exposed to the mountain traditions of the fiber arts. Her grandmother, Mabel Allen, was a weaver and a member of the Southern Highlands Craft Guild, and Stiles remembers accompanying her to her grandmother with her grandmother to guild events, including guild fairs, and watching members spinning, which really helped get her excited about doing all of this. So there she is, and there's Janet, and we're going to turn it over to them. Thank you.
So this is us, and we thought it would be nice to have better weather today, so we brought that with us. So Janet is going to tell about our grant that we have and how it's connected to what we do. I'm the mentor, and Janet is the apprentice.
We applied for a grant through the North Carolina Arts Council for Folklife Apprenticeship to learn, and what I wanted to do was learn from Dede not only how to do natural dyeing through native Appalachian plants, but also just her philosophy of living. And I've always been fascinated by Dede, and I always wanted to know more about her and to learn her way of living. And that's what it's really turned into. It's like, as I was telling Zoe Van Buren, the folklore director of North Carolina Arts Council, what I'm basically doing is soaking up a natural-born subversive. and her way of doing her craft, her way of living, all of it's very different from what you would call mainstream. She's really, I'm not going to say out there, but she's got her own way of doing everything.
She's not making that part up about natural born subversive. A person that was a master's degree student at Warren Wilson College did their master's thesis about me and my activist work in supporting the natural environments, and that was the name of her master's thesis, Dede Stiles, Natural Born Subversive. I've always advertised myself as a friendly local troublemaker.
And Dede has worked closely with the planning board for Buncombe County for long-range planning for uses of the land, and she has a great knowledge of land use. And often when you're doing dyeing, especially, and a lot of people are doing natural dyeing, you can go online and see blog after blog. Oftentimes it's something they may have purchased, or if it's something like, say, tea bags, all great. But what I wanted to learn was to get out and forage for the old-time plants that we had to use, our ancestors here, primarily because there wasn't money to buy other things, so you had to use what you could find. And she has this knowledge, but she also has the knowledge of what happens when certain disturbances happen in the environment to the water. And those two are very closely tied, your plants, but also the condition of the water, not just creeks and rivers and springs, but rainwater. All of it's affected by everything that we do, and the colors are affected. Can you tell them a little bit about the changes that you've seen in the creek on your property and the changes that may have happened as far as the dyes?
Sure. Here, because I live in the same place that I've lived all my life, I've lived beside the same creek for 77 years. And so initially, so I know how it's changed. And where I live in Lytle Cove, after a while, for a long time, my house was the highest one up in the back of the cove, pretty much. And so, but then they sold the land and they came there and were cutting the timber. They made the logging roads, and now they're covering it up with rich men houses. And so for people who are not from around here, and it seems like they aren't ever going to quit. They keep putting in another one and another one. And as that's been happening, I've been able to watch what happens to my creek. And the reason that I watch it so closely is because I use that creek water to make my dye. And and I've used water from other places too. And so I've come to understand that the water makes a big difference in your colors. And so I'm watching my creek all the time. Every day when I go down my driveway, I pass right beside the creek where the water comes. And so I can see and when it rains, I go out and I go up the road and I look at the creek and I look at the other creek, and I can see how much silt they're carrying and how quickly they come up when it rains. And that's a sign of runoff. A long time ago, when there were no houses, it would have to rain a good steady rain all day before the creek would even start to come up a little bit, because the water was soaking into the ground. But now that all the houses and roads are up there, as soon as it starts to rain, right away the creek comes up, because the water isn't soaking in, it's running off into the creek. Now, I'm hoping to start working with those people up there and try to get them to understand that when the water goes down into the ground, that's recharging the water table. And all of those people have wells. And when the water table goes down too far, they aren't going to have any water. They need to understand that, and they need to do something to keep the water up on the mountain. So you're beginning to get an idea of what my activism is about. It's about the water, and it's about native plants. And unfortunately, at the county commissioners meetings, when you get up to make a comment, or at the planning board, you only have 3 minutes to say what you're going to say. So you have to go back 5 or 6 times to give them the whole story. But I'm willing to do that. And so they now, especially at the planning board, you're supposed to get up and tell your name and where you live. But I don't have to do that anymore because they know who I am and they know where I live.
And I too have seen the same thing with creeks. I'm a person who has lived on a creek almost my entire life, a creeker, different creeks. The creek I live on now is in my grandparents' 100-year-old house. And it is actually the overflow from a huge dam that is the water table for the town that I live in. And so also there's a huge mine on the top of the mountain, the Pink Mine, which is for quartz. So when they're running the mine trucks, they're doing a lot of mining up there, there's a huge amount of silt in that creek. I watch the creek, I see the creek. There's periwinkles, which means it's not polluted, but there are no fish. But the creek changes with these small changes, and you think, well, why does that have to do with natural dyeing? But everything's connected. And the natural dyer is the canary in the coal mine. We're the ones that are seeing these changes. I also have access to a spring up in Avery County on some property where we have an orchard. My family has an orchard. And what happened there was a huge influx of this plant called poison hemlock. Does anybody have any idea about poison hemlock? Which looks like parsnips or some type of angelica. And so that changed the way that came in. It almost makes a swamp. It's a plant that'll make a swamp, and it's noxious. Oh, it's a noxious, hideous. Unless you just want to take yourself out. And then, you just put some seeds in there and let them sit for a while, drink it down, and just after a few convulsions, you're gone. But in that, I eradicated over 300 of those poison hemlock plants. And now the water is flowing in a whole different, there's no silt. So these are the things that also change dyeing. And so the more I'm around her, the more I am noticing the natural world and also the pollinating insect plants. These are the core of natural dyeing. And you can tell us more about your...
Right. Well, and so what I want to do today, and we're going to get to the plants for the pollinators, but what I want to do today, the name of this event is Making and Thinking. And I want to start you all thinking about how you can use things from your craft, or if you're not a craft person, things that you can use from what you know. You all know stuff that you can share with other people to make them more, to maybe learn a useful skill or learn something that will help the community and the earth be more sustainable. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to choose 3 things from my craft that I'm going to teach you today so that you can see how you can, as an example of how you can pull little things out of your craft. You don't have to teach the whole craft like I'm doing with Janet, but maybe you can see anything you know how to do you can break it down into little bitty pieces. Like say, if you're a truck driver, if somebody says, what do you do? And you say, I'm a truck driver, but you have all these other little things that you have to know to do that. You have to know about checking the tires. You have to know about what the rules of the road are. You have to know, well, when I went to truck driving school, before the smartphones, you had to know where all the states were. I mean, you get a bill of lading that says this going to Montana, you better know where Montana is. But you see, and that's a little piece of information that you could have taught to somebody. You could teach people where the states were. You don't have to teach them to drive a truck, but that would be useful. So what I'm going to do today is pick 3 things from my craft of natural dye, and I'm going to share them with you so that you can have an idea of how you can pick things out of your craft that you can share with other people. The first thing I'm going to show you is how to roll up a ball of string. So I have a lot of balls of string, so anybody that doesn't know how to do this, I'll give you a ball of string, and the next person beside you can help you learn. Now, I've given some people string. Who else wants a string? Who doesn't know how to do this? You can't exactly throw these things because they come around. Okay, oops. Now I need the basket back. Whoa, girl. I need a string so I can show them. And Janet is going to help me. And this is how, if you have somebody sitting beside you, it's going to really help. And Janet here, this is my trusty sidekick. She's going to help me. And here's what Janet is going to do. She's going to hold the ball, and she's going to gradually feed the string out to me. Now, I'm going to show you what to do first. You watch, and then you're going to do. You take the string, and you wrap it around your fingers like this. You got that? Yeah, do all 4 fingers, and don't put them tight together. Have them kind of spread out a little bit. That'll be useful. And when you got it looking like this, take your time. Okay, you're about ready? All right, now, very carefully, pull that off your fingers and hold it like this. You got it? Okay, now take the string and start going around and around that little clump that you made.
Like an extension cord.
You're heckling people, but I notice you're not doing it.
He's helping that guy.
I'm serious with this weekend too.
Right, now you got to put that little ball of string, hand it to your helper. Be careful because when you start rolling, if that ball falls in the floor, it's going to go someplace, all right?
I noticed Tom disappeared with this yarn thing came out.
Yeah, okay. Now, just keep wrapping. Now go end to end like this. Turn it straight up and down. Wrap it some more. Now, gradually, as you're wrapping it, turn it. Wrap it a few times and turn it a little bit.
Turn it.
Wrap it a few times
You're making it
and turn it a
circular.
little bit. Yeah, you're doing good. Wrap it a few times and turn it a little bit. Yeah, he's doing good. Let somebody else
Hold it for him, Mary.
let somebody else hold the ball. There you go. Because it takes both hands. Wrap it a little bit and turn it. Wrap it and turn it.
No, you've done it before.
This is a heritage skill. When you've learned to do this, you've learned a heritage skill. Your grandmothers and your great-grandmothers and all of the people before that knew how to do this.
They didn't have center pole ball winders?
No, they didn't. I have one, but I don't use it. I like this better. Just keep wrapping and turning. Wrapping and turning. Slow down a little.
Okay.
Don't have to stop at Michael's and go home and get the spare hook. You've got plenty of hooks, all right.
You're doing good. He's doing good.
Doing good, yeah.
I can't say too much about some of the rest of them, but he's doing good. Now, think about about your craft. Think about something that you know how to do that would be helpful that would be useful for other people to know. What do you know how to do? Break your craft down into step-by-step pieces and pick out something that you think would be helpful. Now, if you can't figure out who to teach it to, you go to any local club, the Kiwanis or anybody, or the Y day camps or any kind of thing like that. They're always looking for programs and for people to share what they know. There will be the program director, the person who has to schedule the programs for the meetings will be delighted for you to come and offer to give a program. And after a while, it's going to look like this. Keep going, you're doing good. You just have to unroll the whole thing and then you'll have a ball. Okay. Now, the next thing. Are we good? Now, that was a fun little handy heritage skill.
Now, do they keep the yarn or they put it back in the basket?
They can keep it or they can put it back in the basket.
There's your memento.
I was sitting at the right place one day at the auction. A lady bought a great sack of yarn, but she only wanted one color. And so she picked out the color she wanted, and she made me take the rest of it. It's not natural dyed. It's not even wool. It's acrylic, and it's manufactured in the factory and synthetically dyed. And so
she doesn't care.
You can keep it. Yeah. Besides, I wouldn't want to take my good hand-dyed wool and cut it into pieces this short. Because if you take one of these big skeins, like the purple one there, you make a ball about this big. You can make a ball as big as you can hold on to.
Hey, Dede, would you tell people what each one of these was dyed with? Or is that part of what you'd like to talk about?
Well, if there's time for questions, I'll tell you about them. Because I'm not here today to teach you to be a dyer. I'm here today to teach you to think. So, and I'm going to encourage you what to think about. So, the next thing that I want to talk about, and this is another thing that I know because I am a dyer. There's two plants that I use. One is goldenrod. The other is whitefall asters. I printed these papers. Not enough for everybody, but I know what you all do. You don't take the paper, you take the phone and you take a picture of it, okay? So you can have a piece of paper with the pictures. I would like for you to take them home and put them on your refrigerator. But if you want to take your picture with your phone, okay. See, my phone doesn't do that. It actually does take pictures, but they're not big enough to read what it says. So this is goldenrod, and this is whitefall asters. And when I go out to pick those things, and you gather them when they're in bloom, and they bloom in the fall. And when I'm going out to gather them, they're always covered up with little pollinating insects, honeybees and lots of other kinds of little teeny bees that are native to here. And one of the things that you have to think about is that if you like food, especially fruit and vegetables, you have to have insects to pollinate those things. And right now, the pollinators are struggling, okay? And the problem with bees, particularly honeybees, is they have to, right now, because of different bee diseases, there are no wild honeybees much anymore. And the honeybees are not native to this country. And they have pandemics of diseases just like people do. And if the bees were to get wiped out, then we're wholly dependent on the little tiny native pollinators. And the butterflies, the monarch butterflies, use these plants. I frequently see monarchs, especially on the white fall asters. And so we need to let these things grow. They're, especially because they're in the fall, when the insects are collecting food to store, to keep them alive over winter, so they'll be here in the spring. And during that time, there are no fruit trees, and there are no pumpkin vines, and there are no tomatoes and okra and all the other kinds of things that they would normally work in your garden or in the orchards. They need these native plants, and these are the plants, these are native plants. These are the ones that those insects have evolved with over thousands of years in this place. So we need this kind of plants. So, and it's all right to plant a garden, but it takes a lot of these to feed enough pollinators. So these if you take one of these papers and you look at this, then I want you to understand that you need to let these things grow. I want you to learn to recognize them. Here's a picture of what it looks like when it comes out of the ground. Don't pull it up. Here's a picture of what it looks like in the summer. Don't cut it down with your weed eater, but let it grow. Leave a place in the corner of your yard, or as much of your yard as you can. There's a problem that over the last 250 years or so, people have gotten the idea that any place that there's not a building needs to look like the golf course. No, that ain't right. We're going to starve ourselves like that. Einstein, who was a very smart guy, said, if the bees disappear, in 4 years the humans will be gone, because we won't be able to feed ourselves without these creatures. So what I would like you to do, and now this is the second skill, learning that these plants are important to the pollinators. I know that because I'm a dye person and I see them on the plants. The third skill I would like to teach you is to see. And our ancestors that lived here in the mountains or that lived anywhere were more closely attuned to the environment than most of us are now. They understood how dependent they were on the natural environment. They got their medicine, they got their food, they got their wood for build their houses and make their furniture. It all came from the natural environment. So they knew where everything was. They knew where the plants that they made their medicine from, they knew where that was growing and what kind of a place it liked to grow and where to look for it. They knew what kind of a tree made good furniture for chairs and what kind of tree made better furniture for fence posts. They knew those things. And as they moved through the environment, they noticed what was there. And I would like for you to learn to do that. So what I would suggest is that you pick a place near where you travel past it on a regular basis. Pick a place, look around. Look at a place where you think this stuff might grow. A vacant lot, a fence row, the field in front of the factory, and watch to see what grows there. Watch it every time you go past. Learn to be aware of what is happening in that place. Does somebody mow it? Does it get bulldozed down and they build a CVS? Or an Ingles grocery store? Watch and see what happens. And as the year goes by, watch and see if it has goldenrod or white fall asters. The other thing I want you to know about goldenrod is this. Goldenrod is insect pollinated. If the plant wants to be insect pollinated, it needs to have pollen grains that are big and sticky so they will stick onto the bees and get carried to the next plant. And for that reason, there is no goldenrod pollen floating around in the air. The pollen grains are big and sticky. So you are not allergic to goldenrod unless you lay down and rolled in it. The thing that it causes the allergies at exactly the same time of the year when the goldenrod is blooming is ragweed. It has tiny little flowers, hundreds and thousands of them. They're about this big, and they're green, and they're covered with pollen, and you don't notice them. But when the wind blows, you can see this great cloud of tiny grains of pollen out into the air. So it's hard to get some people to believe that they're not allergic to this. They've thought that for so long that it's in their brain, and they see it with their eye, and it makes their nose run. Even though there's nothing coming from this is goldenrod right here, nothing coming from this plant to their nose. So those are the things that I know because I'm a natural dyer that I can share with people to make the world more sustainable, to support our food supply, to save money. I've done half of my front yard like this. All you have to do, you don't have to buy seeds, you don't have to put down fertilizer, none of that. Just put your lawnmower up and stop mowing. You will get this stuff. This stuff comes by itself. It's a native thing, and it will get here.
If you want to keep it a field, though, and I have about half an acre in just what you're either going to have to bush hog it once a year, or you're going to go out there and trim off the saplings, like the white pine or whatever comes up. If you want to keep it,
yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to grow into a next growth.
A forest, yeah. But we mow. Fortunately, my brother-in-law mows the grass, and I let him mow that part once a year in the spring, in the early spring, like the middle of next month. I'll let him mow down all that's there, and not only will you get these things, but you get all kinds of other wildflowers that you don't. I've got these little yellow things. I don't know what they are. I don't think they're a dye plant. I didn't worry about what their name was because they're not a dye plant. So, but they're real pretty, and my yard looks good. But we've got to train ourselves that when we got to train ourselves to see like a bee. That if a bee looks at a carefully mowed lawn, to them it looks the same as a desert. There is nothing there for them. But if you go to a place where all the weeds have been allowed to grow up and it's all like the stump dump in Swananoa, everybody hates it but me and the man that owns it, and it's growing up in all kind of stuff for pollinating insects, including these here that I talked about today. And when a bee comes to that, he thinks he's at the best smorgasbord buffet in the world. And we have to learn, if we're going to live on this planet, the more people we have, the more important it is that we pay attention to these things, because there's not much leftover land anymore. We have to learn to see like a bee. I want you to learn to see like a bee. Now, those are the things that I know, because I'm a dye person, that I can share with people. I can share them with the planning board and the county commissioners and anybody that might be able to take some action to make things better. So you think about what you know how to do and how you can pick things out of what you know that you can share that will teach a useful skill, a handy little skill, or that can teach a way to help the world be better for everybody. Here's the papers. I made a lot. Some for you guys and some for the county commission. So look around in your neighborhood. Where can you see the bees?
I'm not really because I got to go on
And if you don't get one, then get out your smartphone and take a picture of somebody else. Yeah, I can or not. You want it?
Well, I think I did a great job.
Yeah, this one's mine that I need to.
Now, you got questions? You want to know how we made these colors? Oh, there's another way you can, those are easy ways to share what you know. If you want to know the hardest way there is to share what you know, is write a book. Oh, Lordy. Oh, Lordy. It was terrible. But I got it done. I got it done. This is a companion book to Mary Francis's little book. Her book. It's got lots and lots of plants, but no pictures. But a lot of people didn't have a mother to teach them the names of the plants. So my book has pictures. They're like this. The first picture in the book is poison ivy. When you're going out to forage for dye plants, stay out of that. My hint for if you're going to write a book, have a friend that's a graphic artist. That really helps, and a professional photographer. You got questions? Yeah.
So Janet, I'm curious of how it works when you're learning from her. Like where you start. Like you just start with whatever's blooming, and we're going to learn about asters and goldenrod right now. Or how do you do your?
She plans it, and I do what she says.
Well, the thing about it is this, like any other craft, putting the yarn in the pot and pulling it out again, that's the last part.
Yeah.
The beginning part is rolling the skeins. You have to